put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, that's me. Thank you for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and for the next 90 minutes, I'm going to help you develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. And hopefully, we're going to have a little bit of fun and some great conversation along the way. So hey, as always, do me a solid, gang. Let your friends know, your photography friends. Let them know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Facebook, Twitter, they are the fastest way to get the word out. You can do it one of two ways. You can go ahead and click that little share button. It's like right down there, okay? Or I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paste the link into the chat window right now. And by the way, you can do that from your mobile device too. So if you're on a cell phone or whatever, you can still go ahead and you can share that information, right? You just can. So anyway, as always, one of the coolest things for me about TogChat, we've got people here from all over the world. So please check in, let me know you're here. I've got Lynn from Binghamton, New York. Binghamton's like out in the boonies from where I am, but still, it's New York, right? And then there's Caleb down in Austin, Texas. Aaron's here from England. Pierluigi's here from Milan. Gord is here from, Hamilton, Ontario. We've got Robert from down in Florida. Eric also in San Antonio. Nick in Maryland. So, as always, gang, thank you. Check in, let me know you're here, say hi, and most importantly, start posting your questions. We got 90 minutes. As always, I am going to do my best to answer all of your questions in the next 90 minutes, right? So I got a little bit of stuff to share with you really quick, and then we'll go ahead and we'll dig in. So the first thing I figured that I would share is recently you guys saw that I posted, well, you should have seen that I posted on Instagram. Let's see here, I'm gonna click this up here. And by the way, just in case you don't follow me on Instagram, like seriously, what the heck, okay? But if you follow me on Instagram, you should have seen this post, which is this shot right here, okay? It's a recent beauty shot that I did. And I'm also gonna just switch over, show you the finished one. That's the full shot right there. So I started with the cropped one. For those of you that are wondering, the lighting setup, it's basically done with 2 lights and an LED TV as a background. One light in a 24-inch softbox setup, like the one that is, let's see, just over my shoulder right back there, okay? And then another AD200 with a red gel. But what I wanted to share with you is the day that I did this shoot, I had a young man here who I just met recently. In fact, I met him the day that I moved in to this studio, so maybe kind of fortuitous, but he was here to shoot some video for me that day, and he's going to be coming back to do more video along the way. And so he posted a little behind the scenes clip today from this shoot. So I just wanted to go ahead and share it with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this real quick. It's only 59 seconds long. It's just, a little bit of razzle dazzle and fun, but you guys can see a little bit of the setup, the studio kind of in action, and also get a sense of how that shot was created. And I am curious, guys, because I did not have a chance to test this. Do me a favor and give me a heads up in the chat window. Can you hear the music that goes with this video? I'm not sure that I have that set up properly. I'm not going to lie to you, okay? Ooh, good question there, Tech Me Picture, okay? Loading those questions, guys. We got plenty of time tonight here. So if you guys want to see this on YouTube, I will go ahead and there is no music. Okay, I had a feeling that was the case, so thank you. I appreciate that. I will know to look into that for the next time that I share a video, so I'll just keep talking in the meantime. But if you guys want to go check it out here with music, he did a really great job on it. His name is Yuris Martinez, and really, really talented young man. So I'm actually looking forward to doing some more work with him in the future. And then also just a quick reminder, I've got some really, really important speaking engagements coming up that I'm hoping that I get to meet some of you guys at, right? So Actually, let's switch that over on the screen here. If you don't know how to find out about my speaking engagements and where I'm going to be and whether or not you will have an opportunity to see me, I will also share that link right there, okay? But next weekend, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be in Southwest Michigan in Holland, Michigan at Hope College. It's for the Southwest Michigan Camera Club Council. We're going to be doing, it's actually a 3-day event, but I'll be there for 2 of the days, which is Friday and Saturday, doing some fashion portraiture stuff, also some creativity stuff, and this kind of fun Friday night event that they call Photo Frenzy. So it should be a good time. Right after that, August 10th, I'm down in Austin, Texas as part of the Olympus weekend that's going to happen at Precision Camera. I'll be doing an in-store demo on the morning of Saturday the 10th, all about my fashion portraiture. But that evening from 6 to 9, downtown Austin at the Hotel Indigo, we'll be doing a rooftop shoot. I'm making awesome portraits in natural light. We're going to have some models and swimwear and a swimming pool. Should be a blast. And then after that comes Looking Glass Photo in Berkeley, California. And then right here, well, actually, I'm sorry, after that, Times Square, New York. We're going to do a street fashion photography event for part of a New York Camera Club organization. That's on Saturday, September 14th. And then come the 2 big ones. So starting right here in my new studio in Allentown, we're going to be doing a 2-day portrait studio and lighting intensive. This is a small group workshop, just 7 students. So you get lots of time with me over 2 days. You get lots of hands-on time. You walk away with actual experience in addition to my teaching. And then the fun one that everybody's been begging for, there's still a few spots left on October 12th and October 13th. It's a 2-day fashion portraiture experience. Now, the reason why I'm calling this one an experience is real simple. Part of it is me teaching. The other part of it is you, the attendee, shooting images for your portfolio that are unique to your portfolio. This is unlike any other workshop experience that you are going to attend. So it's not going to be me setting up something really cool with a model and everybody takes turns shooting it. That's pointless, guys. There's no value ever to you doing that. Simply no value. Because you're just getting a bunch of pictures that look like what everybody else has. So what's the point, right? This is a situation where I'm going to be doing some instruction, but then we'll have models, we will have lots of props, we will have lots of accessories and materials and all kinds of cool stuff. And I will become your mentor and assistant one-on-one. And the rest of the attendees will become your assistants. And you will be creating shots that are unique to you. And I will be helping you to kind of flush those shots out, to work the shots and develop images that you'll be able to go home, add to your portfolio to give you something that's unique and completely different. So that stuff's coming up. If you have any questions, tons of information on the website. In fact, here, I will go ahead and I will share these links so that you guys have this stuff. So there's the lecture schedule and the portrait lighting workshop. This is the first one that comes up in September. And then the fashion portraiture workshop that comes up in October. Okay, so hope to see you guys there. There's a few spots left. Yeah, I can talk. A few spots left for both of them. Okay, cool. So what do you say we get into some questions, right? I got a few good ones lined up. I'm telling you guys, we got some time. So load those questions in there. And I will do my best to get to all of them, okay? So a couple that came in early in my Facebook group. So let me go ahead and hit these guys first. First one comes from Aaron Edwards. Aaron, his question is, when you are editing photos and sharpening in particular, is there a sweet spot for you, or is it totally random and subject specific? Well, to be perfectly honest, Aaron, yes. I know that doesn't help you much, right? But that's the honest answer. So there's a sweet spot. I mean, I like sharp images. Eyelashes are one of the things I look at. So when we talk about sweet spots, I want to be able to count those eyelashes whenever possible. I want those eyelashes to be tack sharp. Because I'll tell you, even pupils, they're maybe just a tiny bit soft, a smidge soft. You can mask that amazingly well if those eyelashes are tack sharp, okay? Better yet, get everything in focus. But I'm just saying, if that's the case, okay? I have talked in past talk chats, Aaron, and shared my sharpening settings, and I apologize, I do not have them available to put on the screen tonight. I will tell you that if you join my Tog Knowledge group, which I believe the link was up on the screen there, I'll put it back up there, and I'll share it here in the window. If you join my Tog Knowledge group, all the information on my sharpening settings and everything is available in that group for members. And then, of course, obviously, you have any questions, things like that, I can gladly answer those for you. But I will tell you this, just to maybe give you a little bit more peace of mind. Yes, you need to sharpen your images when you are done. Very important. Yes, you will sharpen one way for an image going on the internet, social media, and you will sharpen another way for an image being printed, right? So it's not kind of a one-size-fits-all thing. It depends on what the intended use of the image is. And yes, it's subjective. It is completely subjective. So for me, the only thing that is horrible with sharpening is when you've over-sharpened and you're starting to pick up all kind of remnants and bit mapping along the edges of lines. Well, then that's overdone. And by that point, it should look to your own eyes like it's just not good. Like it's just way, way overdone. But it is. It's honestly very subjective. Some people prefer things just a little bit softer. Others want it tack sharp, et cetera, et cetera. Ironically, a lot of the reason why people spend money for more megapixels is to get sharper pictures, when all they have to do is learn how to properly sharpen a file, right? I'm sorry, but properly sharpening a file in Photoshop does not mean you're cheating. It just doesn't, okay? I mean, you guys know that I shoot Micro Four Thirds, right? I mean, yeah, that guy, right? So you look at my images, people comment all the time, like, your stuff is so sharp, how do you get so sharp? Well, number one, the M.Zuiko glass for Olympus, it's unrivaled. It does not get near the respect that it should get in the photography industry, in part because everybody wants a pixel peep and be a full frame snob. Fine, so be it. But the fact of the matter is, it's the sharpest glass I've ever used. Far surpasses anything that Nikon produces, period. Add to that the fact that I know how to process my images and I process them properly. And you can find a lot of great new tutorials from people like Scott Kelby. Whoops, did I spell Tog Knowledge wrong in the link, guys? Yeah, I did. Thank you for that heads up. Let me pull that link so that it's gone. And it's never good when you spell or put a typo in your own website link there. Sorry, guys. Let me fix that really quick. And this time I'm going to pay attention so they get it right. There we go. Okay. So, there's a lot of ways to get a great sharp end result without spending, $3,000 or $3,500 for a brand new body and more megapixels and huge files and all that stuff. So I hope that helps, Aaron. That would be my answer to you. Okay. Next question I had here from Alex Cousin. He hurt his back a couple of weeks back. Sorry to hear that. That's never good. He was scouting for locations and shot plans. Glad that you were doing that. Sorry you hurt your back. He was finding that carrying his camera and his flash, it's supposed to be a lightweight stand and 2 lenses in his backpack. Granted, it's a Sigma, but it's crazy heavy. Yeah. So, but now he's looking for an alternative instead of a backpack to carry the gear. Do you or anyone have recommendations about a trustworthy wheeled luggage? He often uses public transportation, so something that takes up too much space isn't an option. Well, I mean, there's a couple ways that we could solve your problem there, Alex. Give me just 1 second here, and I'm gonna do a quick Google search and show you the wheel bag that I particularly like. But I will also point out to you that you could consider a more mobile camera system. Just saying, seriously. Here, so let me switch this over. Now, before you see this page, let me just be clear. These are great bags. I own one of these. It was not handed to me. It wasn't a gift. I'm not sponsored by this company. I bought it, paid cash for it. Crazy expensive, but they're worth it. I mean, they just are. So it's a think tank bag, okay? It's the Airport International. I'm going to put the link here in the chat window there. So check those out. They fit great on airplanes. They're really thin, awesome size. I really enjoy them. So I would recommend that you start there, Alex, and see what you can come up with. Okay. Oh, you know what? Okay, I was going to talk about this later, but since it's here, you guys, if you haven't seen this app, especially if you're like portrait or wedding photographers, if you haven't seen this app, you might want to check this app out. I'm going to assume that they have it for Android. I don't know. I'm an iPhone snob, so if it's not available for Android, sorry. But if you haven't been to my Facebook page, why not? But if you haven't been to my Facebook page, let me show you this thing. It's like really cool. And of course, now I'm on the wrong Facebook page. Here, let's get this up here. This is what that app does right there. So how trippy is that, huh? Is that kind of cool? Yeah. So all on like a phone app. So yeah, it's called Pixaloop. It's by Enlight. I've seen a couple of photographers that are doing some really, really awesome stuff with this app. And let's face it, it's kind of a just for fun thing. It's not like you could print this out and hand it to a client because it's video. It's creating a video, in the end. So it's an animation, but kind of cool. Just saying. So I thought I would share. I literally just downloaded the app today. That's the first one that I've ever done with it. And yeah, I just think it's pretty neat. So, okay. All right. So next question here. Alex had another one also. This is a fun one. Is there any genre of photography that you'll never do, and why? He goes on to say, I wish I could get into macro photography with insects. Alas, arachnophobia ruins it for him. He's tried 2 times so far and failed to overcome the fear. So, Flying Monkey is telling me that the Pixaloop app is available on Android. So awesome, okay? That way you don't have to hate me if you're an Android person. It's available, okay? And you know what? Maybe there's some other softwares that do it. Like I said, I've seen a lot of similar things. Cinemagraphs have been around for a while. This is much easier than doing a cinemagraph. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. That's Google. I'm sorry, cinemagraph. So cinemagraph. Google that. They've been around for a while. This kind of seems very new. And it's definitely very interesting. So, just something to have some fun with in all of the immense amounts of spare time that we have, right? So, Alex, going back to the macro and genres of photography, I actually really enjoy macro. Crazy as it sounds, I do a lot of macro work with my Olympus Tough TG6 just because it has the microscope mode, which sounds really crazy, but my God, it's amazing. And I have that camera with me like almost all the time, so I love to do like macro shots with that. But as far as a genre that I'll never do, it's probably, honestly, it's probably fair to say that I will never be a landscape photographer or even potentially wildlife photographer. Not that I hate those genres. I actually love both of them, and I love most of the challenges that they provide. But there's no way in hell I'm getting up that early in the morning to do landscape work. Like, sorry, just not. I like my sleep, and I'm a night owl, so that's the problem. I'm not one of those people that can go to bed at 9 o'clock and then get up at 3 a.m. so that I can be the first one out there when the sun comes up. Just not my thing. So, I'll own that. It's, pretty lame excuse at the end of the day, but I'll own that. That for me, just not, my thing. So, all right, here's one. And this comes from a buddy of mine. You guys know this gentleman. And if you don't know this gentleman, you need to know this gentleman. This comes from Unmesh Dinda, Mr. Pix Imperfect, all the way from India. So his question has to do with YouTube. But I wanted to address it here because it really applies to making pictures. So he says, Joe, I don't know if you feel the same, but as I create more and more videos, it becomes more and more difficult to create a new one because every next video has to be better than the previous one, and you cannot sabotage your quality or your content. What do you do then? So Unmesh, I don't know if you're here live or if you're going to catch this later, but I'm going to answer the question here as it relates to YouTube. So there will be a few YouTube-specific pieces here, gang. But I promise you, aside from the few YouTube-specific pieces, this really kind of applies to creativity. It applies to you shooting, taking pictures, developing your craft, etc. So for me, Unmesh, yes, it is a challenge. It is sometimes extremely overwhelming. It is sometimes anxiety producing. I am not a person, well, okay, let's be clear, because I want to try and stay politically correct here. Every human being deals with anxiety to some degree, right? Because life generates anxiety. Obviously, some people have a much harder time with anxieties. Some people are truly handicapped and just debilitated because of anxiety, okay? So obviously there's levels to all of this, right? But for me, sure, wanting to create a picture that's epic, wanting to make a video that is just gonna bowl people over, absolutely, it's stressful. Now, I took an approach, Unmesh, which I know that you will not do, but I honestly think that you could benefit from maybe taking part of the concept. So last year, in fact, just about a year ago, I became an Olympus Visionary. So it was not announced yet at this point in July, but this is right about the time that I got the phone call. And so I knew it was coming because it wasn't announced until almost late August, right? But this is the time when I found out. That was a life-altering decision in terms of accepting the offer, making the decision to become a visionary, taking on the responsibilities and taking on the opportunities to be able to travel, to write articles for magazines all over the world that deal with Olympus and photography. And it was amazing. At first, I went into it, Unmesh, with the attitude that I'll be able to do it all. I'm just gonna have to work harder. I've worked this hard to get to that point. I'm gonna have to work harder and just keep at it. And at the time, my YouTube channel was at about 134 or 35,000 subscribers. I'm at about 154, 155,000 now. So, I've gained a fair amount throughout the course of the year, but obviously I don't grow at nearly the rate that you do, Nish, or even the rate that some other newer YouTubers are growing. Because in the last 12 months, the amount of videos that I put out, actual tutorials, so the kind of stuff you're talking about, it's been very spotty and it's been very erratic. And Unmesh, obviously you understand that part of the key to building those big YouTube numbers, it's consistency. It's, dropping video after video after video. And I know for a while you were trying to do like 2 or 3 videos a week. We talked about that when we met, in Shutterfest. My honest advice, and it's counterintuitive, but it's very sincere, and you and I have talked a little bit about this, but you're at a point where you have seriously got critical mass. You have got an empire of followers, but you are not monetizing it enough because you're stressing about these videos. I would actually encourage you to put out fewer videos. Put out fewer videos, put as much detail and effort into them as you always have, and in the meantime, look for other ways to educate your flock and your followers. So for me, ironically, when I realized I was not going to be able to keep up with the videos at first, and by the way, Alexandra, missed the tutorials. I'm looking forward to seeing them back. Thank you. And don't worry, they're coming back really, really soon. I'll explain a bit more about that. I've been teasing it for a while, but we're almost there. Unmesh, you could definitely afford to look at how you can kind of use other platforms now to build your audience, meaning I know that when you post a video, obviously you market that video on Instagram, you also post that video on Facebook, etc. But you could use platforms like Instagram and Facebook to not necessarily share the actual content, but to share smaller lessons and mini lessons. Like the way that you guys, if you see my Instagram posts, I post a picture with a little mini lesson with it, some lighting diagrams, a lengthy description, details. That's kind of been my interim way of keeping, in contact with people, educating people, showing people the stuff that I'm working on and how I'm working on it. But yeah, I mean, I had to make a decision. And as you folks, I'm sure you can imagine, you don't actually make your living on YouTube. None of these YouTubers makes their living on YouTube. You just don't, right? The real money comes elsewhere. YouTube is like the audition. It's the way that people find out about you. YouTube is what gives you influence when you build a large enough audience. And even then, there are people with big audiences that have very little influence. And there are people with smaller audiences that have a lot of influence. So it's not about the numbers game. It doesn't matter how many subscribers you have. The other thing I will point out, Umesh, with your topic, since you're dealing with Photoshop and post-processing, I know that I don't have to tell you, we could take something like masking. Okay, I'm just picking a technique out of the air. Well, there's 50 different ways to do masking, and there's probably 100 different uses for creating a mask. So, for me, Umesh, actually, I'll be honest with you, the way that I use your channel, because I do use your channel, I consider you my #1 Photoshop resource, and I'm not ashamed to say that to anyone, okay? So, in fact, was it last week you had the video about using the blending modes to copy and paste hair? Like, do you have any idea how much time that has now saved me? Like, it's one of those ones where you post a video like that, Umesh, and the title hooks me because it's something that I deal with. I go and I watch the video, and after I watch the video, I literally want to like throw something against the wall. It's like, oh my God, that is so simple, so obvious, so brilliant. Number one, I'm angry. Why didn't I think of that? But number two, you have just at that point done me a huge service. So as I'm sure you can understand, part of the challenge for a Photoshop educator is that and I know you will go to like a stock photography website and you will find an image that you can use to teach a certain technique. And I'm sure you've probably heard from followers that maybe are just beginning, but they want to learn advanced techniques, that they'll watch your video, they'll try the technique, and the technique doesn't work for them. Because the mistake that a lot of people make is they see your image and then they pick an image that has completely different qualities to it, different tonal ranges, different contrast, different color schemes, etc. And they're not making that correlation, so then they don't understand why the technique doesn't work as well for them as it does for you. So a big part of the way I perceive the Photoshop education is something like masking for whatever purpose, teaching it 20 different ways, 25 different ways. Over time, you're going to be able to create like a massive playlist of masking techniques where people are going to come to your channel. It's going to be like masking for this, masking for that. Ooh, that's what I need, masking for this. Okay. So I'm going by your words. I don't think that you have to worry about each video being better. And I am not trying to stroke your ego. I'm being very sincere. Your videos are thorough. Your videos are easy to follow. Your videos are simple in the sense that if you overproduce your videos, then you're just adding fluff that is not really benefiting people. Yes, people will tell you they like to be entertained. The problem with entertainment is they're not really learning, right? So as the educator, just like I do, you have to focus on, what's really going to get the message across for people and what's going to save them time, not only in using this technique, but in learning the technique, what's going to be the fastest way for them to learn it. So I wouldn't worry about each video being better. I think what you've got to do is look at what you do, Umesh, as problem solving, right? What I do in terms of talking to people about how and why, I'm trying to help them solve problems. Whenever possible, I'm trying to help them solve the problem before they encounter the problem. But basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to help them solve a problem. Well, that's essentially what your videos do. I mean, you and I, in that regard, kind of do the same thing, right? So for me, maybe, listen to your audience, maybe poll your audience, which I know you do this, but do more of it to see, like, what are you struggling with? And it may be a topic that you've done a video on 15 times before. But go back and do another one with a slightly different approach. Make sure that the image you're picking is very different than those that you've done before. I think by doing that, sincerely, I think that you are not sabotaging your quality. You're definitely not sabotaging your content. And you are creating very, very useful material. And you're not going to stress you out with the idea the idea that I have to do something I've never done before. Because believe me, and I speak firsthand this, I know you folks, a lot of you think, oh no, he's kidding, that's not the problem. Yes, I do. You know, the irony of it is that you folks like when I tell little backstories. My father was a man who worked in factories his whole life. He was in the Air Force when he was young, and he was going to become a mortician, but he gave up on that, and he wound up working in factories his whole life. He was not an engineer by schooling, but basically he was the equivalent of an engineer. And this man, he could fix anything, like anything. It used to drive him absolutely nuts because he would hand me a screwdriver and I could not remember which way to turn the screwdriver. Like, I just couldn't. I was about as inept as humanly possible with tools, period. In part because I had no interest. My father passed away in 1988, and over the years, you know, I started teaching, and then I wound up on YouTube, and ironically, what am I known for on YouTube but DIY things, and building things, and assembling things, and coming up with all this stuff, which is just crazy. It's still crazy to me, even though I do it. But the irony of it is, I reach a point every so often where it's kind of like, wow, like, I didn't think people would like that idea, but they went nuts over it. And then it's like, what the hell do I do next? Because I'm not sitting here with a big list. Like, so the big one right now is this TV, right? You guys have seen the pictures with the TVs in the background. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's brilliant, it's amazing. So I get to walk around for a week or so and it's like, yeah, I came up with a great idea. And then the reality sets in of like, crap, what am I gonna do next? How do I impress them next? And I have to work through that. Literally, time after time, I have to work through that in my head, because as long as I am focused on that fear of what am I going to do next, nothing comes to mind. Nothing at all. So you just have to stop worrying. You and I share, you know, one very important element in what we do, and that is that we're both passionate about what we do. And I know a lot of you that are watching and listening are passionate about what you do. So when it comes to the creativity piece, you see all these articles, not just on the photography blogs, but on all over the internet, you know, how to rejuvenate your creativity, how to kickstart your creativity, you know, and there's people that are coaches, and, you know, some people, they're into like Tony Robbins and, you know, all that stuff, like, and it's like he's some god. And you know what? If that stuff really motivates you, then seriously, good for you, because as long as it really works for you, that's awesome. But the overwhelming number of photographers that I speak with that follow that kind of stuff, like a Tony Robbins or any of these essentially like evangelists of feel better about yourself and your life, it doesn't actually help them. They feel better, but it actually doesn't get them anywhere. The way you get it done is just to get it done. Just do it. And you know, you're gonna miss sometimes. And when you've got as many videos as you have, when you've got as many subscribers as you have, be a perfectionist in terms of your drive, but realize you're not perfect. You're human, so you can't be perfect. Not all of your videos are going to be your best, but you're gonna try to make them your best. And just stop stressing about it, because let's face it, if you think back on all the work you've done, your favorite videos, forget the ones that got the most views, forget the ones that, you know, were written about in the most blogs and all that stuff, the stuff that we YouTubers worry about. Your favorite videos are the ones that just popped into your head and just flowed out. So you just gotta let yourself have fun and keep having fun. Fun is my new buzzword. Fun is the word. For me, and even the way I'm approaching my videos at this point that are coming back for you guys, it's fun. I'm done stressing out about all the bullshit that is going on in the photography community, because I had to come to a quick realization. As much as I love you all and you support me and you watch my shows and you watch my videos, most of this crap, it's amateurs, it's idiots, and it's trolls. So I know I've just offended some of you, and I'm sorry, but it's not photography. That is not what photography is. And I'm done with it. I'm simply done with that stuff. So I'm gonna focus on having fun. And some people will enjoy that, other people won't, and you know, that's what it's gotta be. But I'm not gonna be able to sustain what I'm doing and do it well if I'm not having fun. So Unmesh, first and foremost, that's the thing for me, okay? All right, so I'm back off my soapbox. Let's go back here. So I'm back into the chat window. I gotta, whoops, I'm on the wrong window though. Let's get the proper chat window so I can put them in there. And from Blizneen, got my first good camera just a few days ago. Been learning so much. It's an Olympus OMD EM5 II. Notice in that sentence, good camera, 5 days ago, Olympus. There you go. No, seriously, congratulations. Welcome to the dark side, as some people would say. Okay. Nick D. Ermilio. Joe, have you covered in an earlier broadcast, but can you suggest, or you may have covered in an earlier broadcast, but can you suggest any template, model release forms, or contracts? If you've previously covered, can you send a link? I have definitely previously covered. Can I send a link? Probably not, because I don't remember which episode, so I'll tell you this. Number one, I use an iPhone app called Easy Release. I don't know if I'm able to put it on my screen here so that you can see some of what it is. Yeah, no, not without showing you stuff that I shouldn't be showing you. So, but anyway, Easy Release comes with some releases and also location releases and some sample contract stuff in it. You know, ultimately, let's be clear, because I know there's at least one lawyer watching, right? Don't take your legal advice from some guy on YouTube. So if you're really worried about the legalities of any of this stuff, you should consult an attorney. But if you're like most of us, myself included, you don't have the money to be going to an attorney every time you need some kind of a document. So what I would recommend is consider joining an organization like PPA, Professional Photographers of America, or possibly even ASMP, American Society of Media Photographers. Both of those organizations have excellent resources available for their members on modeling releases for minors, contracts, location releases, you name it, it's all there. And it's all been vetted by attorneys, which is obviously much better than just going to Google and typing in model release. If you do that, you'll find tons of modeling releases, but you need to pay attention to the source that you're getting it from, right? But I would recommend PPA simply because, you know, for, I think it's around $300 a year. I should know what it costs. I never remember. It's about $300 a year, but that includes $15,000 worth of equipment insurance, plus, you know, all these other resources. So it's actually a steal. So that's where I would start. But I don't do paper releases anymore at this point, Nick. I do everything digitally. Easy Release is my app of choice. Super, super simple. All the releases immediately get emailed to both myself and to the model, and they get stored up in the cloud, so I don't have to worry about printing them. If my computers, you know, just burn up tomorrow, I've still got all my releases. It's awesome, okay? All right, next up here, scrolling down, where are we at? And I know there's a bunch here. I'm getting through all the check-ins. Wow, we got people here from everywhere. You guys are awesome. So this question's from Germano Jr. down in Brazil. Which menu do you use to make the flower shot in live composite mode? So this is actually a piece that's in my Facebook group. Let me see if I can see this, because people think it flower shot. Like, what do you mean flower shot? Joe shoots people, right? I do. So what he's referring to, let me switch this over. There's a post in my TogChat group where, and this is like a year or so old. It's October of 2017, so this is like 2 years old. I was photographing aluminum flowers. It's just a little live stream that I did, and I'm using a live composite mode. So basically what I'm doing is, let me see if I can get to the end. I'm painting with light, okay? So it's essentially time exposure. So his question is, how can we reproduce this on Canon cameras? It's real simple, just a time exposure or bulb exposure, Germano. The difference is you need to do it in the dark, right? So in the video that you saw me doing that technique, I had the lights on in the room, and because obviously you were able to see me talking and everything, of shooting a video, right? That's one of the benefits of using the Olympus Live composite. But in order to do that with a Nikon or a Canon or that other brand, you can do it just as a bulb or time exposure, and you just have to be a little bit more diligent, be a little bit more careful, and work in a really dark space. That's basically what it's going to take. But that would be how you do it. Okay. But yes, on the Olympus, that was on the live composite settings. Okay. All right. Scrolling on down here. All right. There's the rest of the check-ins. Tech Me Picture. That's a great username. Hi Joe, is it okay to use a combination of continuous and flash or SYR? Not sure what that is. Sure. Why not? Tech Me Picture, if you're here, give me some more specifics. Because, I mean, the short answer is sure. But I don't think I've actually taught you anything with that answer. So I'd rather try and help you solve a problem. If you're asking me that question, I can make a fair assumption that you've got an idea, something you want to do, and you're trying to figure out if it's going to work. So share more of that, and then I can probably, help you solve a problem and come up with the right answer. Okay? All right. Scrolling down some more. Let's see. From Ajax Rodriguez. Ajax, I love the multiple amazing images you capture from your recent shoot. I'd like to know your process of how you decide which was the one image. It looks kind of like this. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. No, I'm kidding. That's actually something that would be good to do a video about. Because it's kind of hard to describe. So you guys know, like, if you've watched enough of my videos, you know, number one, that when I'm doing shots like that, I'm not shooting 5 frames or 10 frames like a lot of people shoot. I'm shooting 30, 40, 50 frames, sometimes even more, depending on what's happening, okay? And I'm looking, for very, very subtle differences from frame to frame. So a lot of people are like, well, God, doesn't that take you like forever to edit? Because now you've got all those frames you've got to go through. Well, actually, no, it's really easy to edit because they're subtle differences. They're small changes. So you can scroll through them very, very fast, and the differences become very, very evident because I don't have to pay attention to the whole picture. I only have to pay attention to the changes in the facial expressions, right? Yeah, I mean, I think, but honestly, that's really what it is. And then I go through a series of trimming it down. So I'll start, and I work in Bridge. Remember, we've talked about this before. I hate Lightroom, despise it with a passion. I don't want to have to import, export. That's the end of that conversation, okay? So I work in Bridge where I can label by colors or I can label by stars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my system is first pass on my shoot. So I might download 1,000 files from a shoot. First pass on my shoot, I'm going through and I'm just hitting what happens to be the 6 button on my keyboard, which gives me the red flag in Bridge. And so I'm just hitting the red on images that are like, ooh, I like that, ooh, I like that, ooh, I like that, ooh, I like that. Not being terribly discerning. So that first pass, what it's doing, Ajax, it's allowing me to get rid of like all the blinks, right? All the blinks, all the test shots, all that kind of stuff. Knocks that out. If there's boring stuff, if the model did something weird, whatever, that's gone. Boom. Now that I have that group, and by the way, everything that didn't make that first cut, deleted, gone. See ya. No reason for me to keep it. Now that I have all the images that, were just marked with red, I actually remove that label from them all. And I go back through that group again with number 6, the red, and a little bit more discerning, a little bit slower this time. And because I may have 1,000 frames to start, now I'm going to be down around 200 on average, 250, somewhere in there. So I'll go through the second time, and my goal is to try and get it down to at least around 150, 125. Without stressing about the number, but it's just if I'm, being a little bit more discerning, paying a little bit more attention, because it's not uncommon because I shoot heavy, where I may have 3 or 4 frames in a row that when you're going through them quickly, they pretty much look exactly the same. It's not until you really start to dig into them that you see the subtle differences. So once I've done that and I've got it trimmed down, now I will go through again, and this time I'm using the number 3, which puts 3 stars. And so I will go through, trim it again, then I will go through again, just the number 3s, and I will hit number 4, which gives it 4 stars, and then get it to number 5, where I've got 5 stars. So each time I'm, thinning down. Once I'm at 5 stars, then I'm usually in a situation where I've got 2 or 3, maybe 4 of each variation that I shot, or each, version of the picture, and then I'll just put those up on the screen so that I can compare them side by side, whatever, and narrow it down to the one. But that's something that actually probably would be good for me to share in a video. And I think it would be much easier to actually do a shoot and then sit down at the computer with all the raw stuff and show you, how I work through that. So I will keep that in mind, and we'll see if I can come up with that. Okay. So Gord Smith. I never would have thought to use a flat screen for a backdrop. It would give you endless choices. It looks like, although it is backlit, it would have its pros and cons. Yes, no. Well, I mean, the pros are off the charts. So the big pro is, especially if you are trying to make money as a photographer, backgrounds are expensive. Once you own it, you can only use it so many different ways before it's kind of like been there, done that. I'm bored now, right? Now this is again for portrait photographers, because the TV's not big enough for full length yet. They're getting big, but they're not that big yet, right? So if you're making money as a portrait photographer and you factor in what you spend on backdrops over time, once you've purchased this inexpensive TV, like I got this TV for under $500 on Amazon. It's some Chinese brand, TCL, right? So once you've got it, and you hook a laptop up to it. In fact, here, if you look down here, you can see, let's go that way. There's like the laptop that's hooked in by HDMI cable, okay? I've got an unlimited number of, backdrops that I can put in there. So I go and I will go through stock photo sites, cheap stock photo sites, and I'll buy textures and things like that. And then once I have that texture, let's say it's yellow, but I don't want it yellow, I want to make it blue. Well, I can go into Photoshop and I can change it. If I want to give it a vignette, I can do that. So like, I can it's literally an infinite number of possibilities. The cons, it's a 65-inch TV. So, you do have some limitations in terms of your framing. You really have to pay attention to depth of field, not bokeh, depth of field, okay? But yeah, so, for me, I use two lenses, and it depends on what effect I'm after. I use the 45 if I'm gonna have the television fairly close to my subject, and I'll use the 75 if I want the television a little bit further away. Because with the 45, if I back the TV up, obviously the TV is getting smaller then in relationship to the subject, so it starts to get to a point where it's not going to fill the frame, right? So there's some physics involved here, gang. But the TV is highly reflective. However, on this particular stand, I can tilt it. So like, all I have to do is walk up to it. And you see me do that in that behind the scenes video. I just grab the sides and I can literally change the angle on the TV. And you can see, like right now, you see the reflections that are there. So if this is how I was shooting and that was in my camera, I could aim the TV down or simply turn away and boom, the reflection's gone, right? So basically when I'm working with it, I will set my lights, whoops, other way, there we go. I will set my lights, and when I do my first test shot, if I've got a reflection in the television, then I just go and tweak the angle of the TV and it's gone. But other than that, I wouldn't really say pros and cons. I mean, it's really pretty, awesome in that sense, okay? All right. Alexandra, I just love what you do with fabric and other materials, especially when you make hats. How do you come up with it? I tried to make a hat and just got a bunch of cellophane paper over my wife's head. Alexander, honestly, I want to be a smartass and say drugs. That's what I want to say. It's not drugs, I swear. You just have to dive in and try things. My advice to you would be go back and put a bunch of cellophane on your wife's head. You may have to buy your wife a nice dinner or a gift for this, but put a bunch of cellophane over her head. But then step back and just take a good look at what's there. Or better yet, pick up your camera and take a picture. Put the camera on a tripod. Take a picture of what's there and look at the image. Maybe tether to a computer. But then evaluate what you see from the standpoint of what part of it do I like, what part of it do I hate. And then you go back and it's like, well, maybe if I pull this out and you try test shot, nah, too much. Maybe it's this side, then you and you experiment and you test and you play. And over time, you will learn. Unfortunately, I could do a million videos about it. There's no like step 1, step 2, step 3 that you can teach to someone. You just can't. And let me tell you straight up, I don't think I'm that good at that stuff. I really don't. I will tell you that I'm not afraid to fail. So that helps me be good because I'll take chances. I'll do things that don't seem to be intuitively smart. just to see what happens. And every now and then it's like, whoa, that's cool. But believe me, I see like stylists that do that kind of stuff, and it's like, oh my God, I wish I had that creative ability, and I don't. I think my success with it is just that I'm not afraid to fail, and then look at it and say, how can I make it better? That's the key. So that's what I would recommend. So, all right, let's see. And so, Per Luigi asked, what are the tricks to keep in mind when you use the TV? Hopefully that's it. I mean, honestly, that's it. I've run into no other issues with it. It's awesome. Now, do keep in mind, I'm usually shooting at slightly slower shutter speeds, 30th of a second, 60th of a second, keeping the flash at fairly low power. But yeah, I mean, it's literally not a problem. And you guys can go back and look at the last several Instagram posts that I've done where I've used the TV as backgrounds, and I shared all the settings, so you can see what kind of settings I'm using. It's completely functional, in that sense. So, build signal. I'm struggling with establishing a post-production workflow and useful archiving. I think I remember you once wanted to explain how to go about it, having an easy. I do actually have a very easy set, and in fact, gosh, I should remember this. Is it this Thursday? Any of my Tog Knowledge folks here, can you tell me, is Thursday the day that we are doing the webinar? If you remember my Tog Knowledge group, this Thursday I've got a webinar about my filing system, my archiving system, all that kind of stuff. So, and of course, I do not have Tog Knowledge on the screen right now. I'm sorry. So maybe one of you guys that are Tog Knowledge members can let me know. But I'm pretty sure it is. Lynn, thank you. It's this Thursday. So you might want to consider, and the link for Tog Knowledge is, whoops, right up there. There we go. Consider joining the group, and you'll be able to participate in that. Okay? All right. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. From Jose. Hello, Joe. Ask why when I print black and white photos, I do not get pure black and white. I always have a little tendency of some other color print on a 6-inch plotter. Yeah, I mean, especially with inkjets and that, you tend to get a little bit of blue in there. There's a couple things, and it all comes down to your settings. So it's going to require a little experimenting, Jose. You need to go back and make sure that you're literally working with an image that is made up of only grays, number one. Like if your image is RGB and you want that pure black, you're gonna have a really hard time getting it, okay? Because the printer's gonna mix more colors in. You want it to work with more of the blacks and than the actual colors. So yeah, and I'm not a printing expert, but I will tell you straight up, if you're working on an RGB image, you're making it a lot harder to print black and white. So you wanna print from grayscale. And then make sure all of your settings all the way through are set up accordingly, okay? All right, scrolling down here. Fash2314. Question is, can you suggest for me one thing, please? Just one? Can I suggest more than one? Sorry. I've moved from Nikon to Olympus EM5 II. Yay, congratulations. Welcome to the dark side. It's awesome over here. Can you please suggest to me the sharpest budget portrait lens? Thank you. Well, I mean, straight up, number one, stick with M.Zuiko lenses because there's no reason not to use M.Zuiko lenses. Number two, pick one. Like, pick one. I mean, for me, I love the 45s. So you've got the premium 45s and you've got the 45 f1.2 Pro. I also love the 75 1.8. So, any of them. They're all, obviously the Pro lenses are a little bit more expensive. The premium lenses are more reasonable, so you might want to look at the premium ones if budget's an issue. If you are really, really tight on budget and you want to go with a shorter lens that's maybe a little bit more universal, consider a 50 millimeter. That would be an option there. Or even one of the 25s, but that's going to give you a 50 millimeter full frame equivalent, which is, it's a little rough for portraits. But for me, the 45 is my go-to, and of course I use the 45 f1.2 Pro, but either of the 45s, I have used them both, and they're both awesome. Okay. All right. Next up here, and let's see, from Eat Simple Food. Cool username. Whoops. Let's fix that. So I gotta turn off the power saving there, don't Eat simple food. I mainly use the Fuji X-T1, X-T3, and Capture One, as well as Affinity and Photoshop. I shoot photos for social media, portraits, and products. I need advice for a good workflow. I use Google Drive and Photos now. Wow. So there's like so much to unpack there, Eat Simple Food. And I sincerely would love to help you out. But I'm going to be really honest with you. So a couple of things. Number one, anybody that's willing to answer that question for you on a YouTube live stream is just going to screw you up. Me too, right? Because there's so much more stuff I need to know. So much more stuff. Because when you say workflow, to me, you know, workflow is what software am I using, and then how do I file my images. But you're talking here about Google Drive, and I don't know what Photos Now is at all. I'm sorry. Maybe that's a European thing or something. This would be a question that's perfect for my Tog Knowledge group, or even possibly in the TogChat group. So if you can't afford to do Tog Knowledge, and that's quite all right, I try to do as much as I humanly can for free. Consider joining my Facebook group, but do understand that if you ask a question that's that broad, that's not helping me at all. Like, nobody's going to be able to help you. They're going to throw a bunch of opinions at you, but you haven't given enough information. Because honestly, the best advice I can give you with the information you've given me is find a workflow that works for you. That's the best advice I can give. I need to know a lot more about what you're doing, how you're doing, and I'm not sure exactly what you're defining workflow as, because I think you're using the word slightly differently than I do, and that's okay. But yeah, so I would need a lot more information. But that's going to be that's like a whole video in and of itself. But it sounds like you're asking for all the stuff that I'm about to do in the webinar on Tog Knowledge on Thursday. Okay. All right. So next up, whoop, let's make that go away. There we go. Scrolling on down here. Diego, is there anything new that you've learned recently that would be worth sharing, or are you at a point in your career which it's all about creativity and no more technical skills needed? Wow, that's interesting, Diego. So a couple things. Number one, I don't think that you can ever be at a point in your career where there are no more technical skills needed. I honestly think that any photographer that thinks that way has just ended their career. The world evolves, life evolves, the industry evolves, people evolve. I want to evolve, right? I don't want to be a dinosaur. I mean, we all know how that worked out, right? So for me, I think you need to keep learning, especially since we're in an arena that itself keeps evolving, you know, dramatically. So yeah, so even, you know, I joked on the social media posts, you know, there will be no gear sniffing tonight, no four-letter word usage, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I am not interested in getting into the stupid debates over gear and all that stuff, because I really don't care. But do I pay attention to where the industry is going? Do I pay attention to what tools are available to me? Sure. But just because there's a new tool, I certainly don't need it. It's a matter of, you know, is it actually doing anything for me? I mean, for me, like, you know, for me to look at that camera, even if I wasn't an Olympus ambassador, for me to look at that new camera by Sony, not only would it be out $3,500, it would totally destroy my workflow and add an insane amount more time. And also that I could put pictures on Facebook and YouTube. Like, really? Why? I mean, that's the best part of it. And you got to give Sony a lot of credit. Thousands of people will go buy that camera for $3,500 with 60-some megapixels, so that they can go on Instagram and Facebook and brag about it. God. Humans are so intelligent, right? Just saying. So yeah, you never stop learning the technical stuff. I mean, at this point in my career, because of what I do, I can also tell you that I relearn a lot of things. So every video that I've ever done for you guys, in terms of the tutorials, I go and I research the topic first, even though I know it. For one simple reason. You know, I learned it one way. There's other ways to do it. Sometimes in the course of doing those videos, I relearn something and realize, wow, you know, dude, you've been doing it the hard way all this time. This is so much easier. And so that's what I'm going to go try, and then I'm going to teach that to you because it makes more sense, because it's a technique that I had never learned or stumbled on, okay? So the learning piece never stops. I think for me right now, though, I mean, certainly my focus, and it's kind of what I was talking about before when I answered the question from Umish Dinda, my focus is on creativity. Because look, guys, and I say this all the time, I'm not trying to be modest. I'm not asking for people to pat me in the back. I am not the world's greatest photographer. Unlike some other YouTubers, you do not hear me coming on here and showing you a picture and saying this is like God's gift to photography, right? Not my thing. I'm never going to be that guy. I am like a kid in a candy store that gets to play in this industry. So my niche, I'm kind of like the cheerleader guy. I'm the rah-rah guy. I'm the guy that says, hey, give back to the basics and put in the hard work, and you can do anything you want to do because you can, right? That's my thing. So for me, you know, I think where I'm putting most of my efforts in, it's like finding that something that's a little bit different that I can use to motivate people, like the TV thing. You know, I mean, true story, when I did it, I didn't tell my wife the day that I bought the TV. Like, and she ultimately would have been very supportive, but it was one of those things, it was actually kind of a spur of the moment thing. I stumbled on the TV on Amazon, I saw the price, and then I was like, because I literally for about a week prior to that had been floating this idea in my head, because we have a 70-inch television at home on a wall. It's really big and it's really heavy. And I'd been kind of floating this idea that, hey, wouldn't it be cool to use that as background? Because, you know, you turn on like television now, you go to YouTube, you watch a concert, right? And they've got all these big video screens behind you. It's like, you can do cool stuff with that, right? So the idea was there, and I stumbled on this TV. It was like less than $500, and I was like, okay, but now how do I mount it, or how do I move it around, whatever? So I went and started searching around on Amazon, and I found the stand that I have for like $70. So it's like, okay, for $570, what does a background cost? How many backgrounds do I own? How much money does that mean I have invested in backdrops? How many of the backdrops that I own do I never use because I'm bored with them, because I've used them already? And then it kind of hit me. It's like, hey, you know, this is actually, it's not intuitive for a lot of people, but this actually would be a smart business move for a lot of portrait photographers. At that point, it's like, done. Order the TV. It's like, okay, we're going to make this work. It probably would have made a lot more sense if I'd have maybe done some testing with a smaller TV, just, you know, whatever. But now it's like, go for it. Do it. So yeah, but to go back to the first part of your question, is there like any one thing or any specific thing that I've learned recently? I'm sorry. Nothing, you know, right now, I'll tell you honestly where I'm at right now. Right now, I'm in a lot of relearning, especially moving into the new studio. I do have a video coming out that's going to introduce you to the whole studio. And just like my home studio video, I'm going to talk about all my decisions and my mistakes, because I did actually coming into here. I made some mistakes. Fortunately, they didn't cost me any major money, but I had some ideas about how I was going to use the space that were just turned out to be so far out in left field stupid. I had some other things that I thought I would do or not do that I realized actually pretty quickly, yeah, that's not going to work, stuff like that. All of that stuff for sure, Diego, I will be sharing with folks, and again, really with the goal to help prevent people from making similar mistakes. So that's coming really soon, okay? Christopher Brown, please don't get involved with YouTube drama. Yeah, I try not to. I mean, I will weigh in on some things from time to time, but I do not go looking for the drama, believe me, okay? Let's see, David, oops, let me get this on the screen here. You just checked out the Think Tank Airport International 3.0. Have I had any issues with the size of the bag for domestic travel? Only on really, really small commuter jets. So if you're in a really small commuter jet, it's probably not going to fit in the overhead unless the flight's empty enough that you can go sideways with it. If you can go sideways, it'll fit. And if you're going under the seat with it, it will fit under the seat on commuter jets unless you overpack it. If you overpack it, then it's going to be a really tight fit. Just is, okay? But no, I've traveled all over the country with it, and it works out great, okay? Just like anything else, always check your airline, you know, for their specifications, because it's a game, even with check luggage. So here, I'm going to show more about this later, but you guys have seen in the past the bag that I was using when I travel for my Olympus events, okay? It was the Pelican 1650 bag. So that's not, or case. That's not this one. So this is one of the Pelican Air cases, and you see it's taller. So what's cool about the Pelican Air cases is that they're made from a different type of material than the regular Pelican cases. So it actually has a little tiny bit of flex like in the middle here, but they're super strong, super durable. But literally this case, so the way you determine if your bags can go on checked luggage is you take the measurement in inches of the height by the width by the depth. So, you know, you measure the depth, you measure the width, you measure the height, and you add those numbers together. So we're not looking for cubic dimensions. You add those numbers together, and it's got to be 62 or less. And then it's got to be 50 pounds, max. Anything over 62 or 50 pounds, and you're going to pay $200 a bag on most American airlines, right? So this particular case, the trade-off was it's bigger, but the case itself is lighter. It measures out right at 62, and I checked with a ton of photographers that travel with it. They've never had a problem, never been questioned, so that was, you know, an important thing. And I've been able to put a lot more gear in it, and because of the weight trade-off, I still come in. I actually weighed it today because it's already ready to go for Michigan next week, and it comes in at 48.5 pounds. So yeah, the think tank bag for me has worked absolutely awesome. I've had no problems with it. But always check, always double check, you know, with your airline carrier what their rules and regulations are, period. And if you get to a situation, especially on a small commuter flight where they try to tag that bag and take it from you, you do a lot of begging. You know, and I talk about this in the video that I did. I have that video about traveling with camera gear. If you're polite to the stewardess, because if it's at the gate where they're taking your bag at the gate, that kind of situation, don't fight the gate agent. Let them tag the bag. If the gate agent wants to take it from you at the gate while you're still in the waiting area, all you do is you say to them very nicely, this is really expensive camera equipment. Can we put the tag on it, but will you allow me to take it down and ask the stewardess if it can go on the plane? If you talk to most gate agents nicely and ask them that question, they'll say, okay, but if they say no, it's got to go in the hold. All right, fine. But now you have permission to go to the people who actually have the decision, right? Because in theory, a stewardess can say, oh no, we'll take that 200-pound bag on the plane, right? That's within her power to do so. So you'll then go down the ramp, and when you get to the plane, there may even be one of the gate workers there who's collecting all the luggage. You say to him, you know, very politely, this is camera equipment, can I just ask? And obviously the stewardess at that point is like 4 feet away and within his eyesight, and you ask the stewardess, please, this is camera equipment, can this please come on board? That bag is not too big at all, okay? But yeah, if you're in a small enough plane, there's certainly that possibility. So always check your airlines, rules and regulations on that kind of stuff, okay? All right, so scrolling around here, and let's see. Per Luigi, question, Joe, it's probably different for a pro, but how do you find the right mood when photographing? For example, to take pictures, I absolutely have to be in the right mood, otherwise my photos will suffer. Diva much? No, kidding. Everybody approaches creativity a little bit differently. So for me, like if I'm doing a shoot here in the studio, I'm not a morning person, right? So I don't want to be shooting too early. That's why I'm not a landscape photographer. Because just think about it. If I could do landscapes, if I was okay with getting up early in the morning for sunrise, I wouldn't have to deal with all the whiny models. None of that stuff, right? It'd be a lot easier, just saying. So, but I get here, usually we'll start anywhere from 9 to 10 a.m. I prefer to go for 10 a.m., but some mornings, and based on the schedule for the day, between myself or my makeup artist, we need to start at 9. The good part is that model's going to be in makeup for an hour to an hour and a half before I have to take pictures. So that allows me to kind of ease into my day. And literally, once the hair and makeup begins, I don't talk to them. I don't acknowledge. It's like, do your thing, boom. If they have a question, they'll call me over. But otherwise, like, I go do my thing. And that'll usually be literally sit here on a stool, answer some email, have a little snack, drink a can of soda, because I gotta have my soda, and then go ahead and set up. And then I'm kind of ready, that type of thing. But yeah, I don't think there's really a right way there, Luigi. You've gotta, as a creative, it's no different when you go to do editing, right? A lot of people will say that same thing to me about editing. It's like, it's my least favorite part of photography. It's like, how do you get in the right mood? Because if I'm not in the right mood, I just can't do it. That's actually all just called being human, right? So it's all about understanding yourself and really paying attention on those days when you're really in the mood to do a shoot and everything's coming together or everything is together and you're excited. At the end of the day, you kind of look back and say, that was awesome, but why? Why did I wake up so excited? Maybe it was a subject. So maybe that tells you, on a bad day, you're picking the wrong subject, right? Whatever, but you've got to look at it from the standpoint of, well, what went right? What made this day different than all the other days? And then you start to make sure that you're doing those things or creating those circumstances so that you can enjoy the day. That's where I would start. Question from Nick here. Joe, did you say you have a Godox 8600? Do you use the extension head? If you do, how do you hang the main body on your light stand? I do not. I have some Godox 8400s. There's two of them right there. I do not have the extension heads for them. I'm sure somebody's got to have some kind of hook or hanger gadget by now, Nick. But yeah, I have no use for a 600 watt second strobe. Even if I had to go outside tomorrow and overpower the sun, I'll do it with 400 watt seconds. Like 600 watt seconds is an insane amount of light. So, but yeah, so I'm sure somebody makes some kind of a bracket, but unfortunately, no, I don't have one. So, Ryan Farmer, will you be visiting the UK anytime? I would love to, man. I've been trying to work it out for like 2 years to get there. And I won't lie to you, part of it's a learning process in the sense that there's a strictly legal way to do it and a strictly under the table way to do it, okay? So, from a tax standpoint, like if I were to come there and do a workshop or teach or whatever, I have to have a work permit and all that kind of stuff. I fully realize there are certain other photographers and YouTubers who are now traveling the world doing workshops, and I guarantee you they do not have all those permits. Not all of them. I'm not speaking for every one of them, but a lot of them do not have those permits. So I'm still trying to work out some of the logistics there. I would rather do it legitimately and not get in trouble. But yeah, I actually have family in the UK, Ryan, North Finchley, right outside of London. So I would love to get back to, to London and do some stuff, but hopefully soon. So, okay. Alexander, what is your workflow for post-processing? Could you say if it's more dodge and burn oriented or more frequency separation oriented? Well, okay, so you heard part of what I said before. It's both. It's not either or, it's both. Especially for beauty shots, for the high-end stuff, okay? Yeah, it's definitely both. All right, so back to TechMe Picture. I asked for some information here. It says, basically, I wanted to know if I'm breaking some rules where lighting is concerned. I wonder if using flash defeats the purpose of using continuous lights. Granted, I think the pics turn out great. Oh, no, my God, you're asking anxiety questions. Rule, let's start there, right? Rule is a 4-letter word. Remember what your mama taught you. No 4-letter words. Done, right? So, yeah, there are no rules. Lights are tools, right? A flash is a tool. Continuous lighting is a tool. So it's all about using the tools to the best of your advantage to get the results that you want. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with mixing both at all. It can be done functionally, and it can be done very creatively, right? So yeah, there's definitely options, okay? Steve Wilking, do I have a problem with refresh rates on the TV when shooting? No, just like there's no problem now, none, okay? And you saw in that video and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I promise you guys that's something that I would talk about for sure. There no issues at all. Okay, Kevin, I went for a beach sunset swimsuit shoot. Say that 5 times fast. Beach sunset swimsuit shoot. Yeah, nah, that's just gonna go in a bad place. Okay, and the sun was completely blocked by dark clouds. Although we did the shoot, I was too disappointed to focus. What does one do to beat that feeling? Kevin, that is one of those situations. It is a perfect example of what a photographer actually does. Solves problems. So what you got beat by the social media curse. I call it the social media curse, right? So we have to blame somebody, right? So we'll blame social media. This is part of why, so hear me out, folks. You're all going to disappear as soon as I say this first sentence. This is why photographers today are idiots. Me too. We spend thousands of dollars on camera gear. Thousands. Thousands, usually more than we need to. The problem is once we spend that money, we're not happy with a good picture. We're not happy with an okay picture. We're not happy unless that next picture is epic. Anything less than epic sucks. Social media says so, right? In a situation like that, you solve problems. You know, since it's dark and it's cloudy, overpower it, make it dramatic. Dark clouds have lots of detail. And think about it, Kevin. How many beach bikini shoots do you see with deep, dark, moody lighting? I would argue that you missed an opportunity to do something really cool. Certainly, it wasn't your original idea. It wasn't your original concept. But as a photographer, if you are going to consistently create good or great images, your job, your task is to solve problems. So that would be my answer for you there, okay? All right, let's see here, sliding on down. Christopher Brown. I'm going to show that post. I'm not exactly sure. I'm guessing you're helping somebody out there, but that's cool. I'll let that ride through. Sorry. Let's see. Lover Guy. I hope your daughter's there. It's actually Lehigh Valley Railroad Guy, but I have to say that for your daughter. I don't think you're being fair to yourself. I've been around more years than I want to admit. Your creativity levels are off the chart. Well, thank you. But that's actually would be what I would take credit for. I think I've got a lot of really creative ideas, but that creativity doesn't translate to being the most amazing photographer in the world, by far. It simply doesn't. And even, you know, again, looking at someone like a Lindsay Adler, who people frequently will say, oh yeah, you know, you and Lindsay Adler do the same kind of stuff. God, not even close. She's kind of like the real deal in terms of like an amazingly talented photographer in all aspects. So believe me, Lover Guy, I sincerely appreciate the vote of confidence and the compliment. And I do. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I come up with these crazy ideas and I can, you know, bring them to fruition. But yeah, I'm pretty realistic in terms of where I fit in the pecking order of things, and I'm good with that. I mean, again, I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I get to play in this industry, and it's not work. So yeah. So for me, it's all good. So let's see here. Kevin, just did some photos for a youth camp with the new EM1 Mark II. Had it about a month. Congratulations, man. Any thoughts on getting better low light results or post-processing with the Micro Four Thirds? We're shooting 2.8 lens, still at 3200 ISO. Well, for one, you're not helping me much there because, okay, so you did some shots at a youth camp. So I'm assuming you mean indoors in the dark. Because when I hear youth camp, I'm thinking outside. So Kevin, you know, I would need to see some of your stuff. Let's remember something about this low light stuff, gang. Like, period. I started photography back when the fastest film available was ASA, not ISO. So if you don't know what ASA is, Google it, Google, okay? The fastest film you could get was ASA 400. And we took pictures in dark places. I see Kevin saying here, you're in a gym with basketball. I shot basketball, high school basketball, no strobes, available light. Problem solving, gang, problem solving, right? Yeah, it's cool that there are cameras and there is equipment that can basically take pictures with no light. But why? What's the point, okay? And by the way, 3200 for me. Now, I don't know if you're doing 32,000 or 3200 there. 3200 for me, I have no problem with the noise levels on Micro Four Thirds. None whatsoever. If you felt the need to shoot at 32,000, you got way bigger problems. You just do. It's absolutely, there's no reason to be shooting that way. Photography, photo, from the Latin light, right? Means light, needs light. So yeah, there's other ways to solve the problems, okay? But yeah, I never had a problem with ASA 400 film back in the day. We pushed it to like to 800 or 1600, and either, you know, process it longer or process it warmer. That's how you would push film, okay? The problem with processing it warmer is that, you know, you wound up with bigger grain, like golf ball size grain. That was never good. But let's see here. Photomix Media. Question, I want to make sure I get something clear about the Adobe CC subscription. Does my CC software become useless once my subscription ends? Unless you hack it, yeah. It does. Hopefully that helped. I'm not quite sure where you're going there, but yeah. So, all right, let's see here. David Barrett, a year or more ago, you shared a tip about using a piece of paper to set your screen brightness to aid with exposure when printing files. Could you go over that again? Yeah, sure. It's actually, this is one of those crazy little lessons. Somebody asked earlier, like, you know, do you still learn things at this point in your career? This was one of those things. I learned this probably about 2 years ago, and it was like, you know, a light bulb moment of like, whoa, mind blown. So I had just accepted the fact, even with calibrating my monitors, when I would go to print, if I would just print what I saw on my monitor, it would come out dark all the time. Even if I would send it to a lab, it would tend to come out dark unless I was letting the lab make adjustments. So that's what I usually did. I would go ahead and let the lab make adjustments. And if with a good lab, most of the time that works, but not always, right? So then somebody pointed out to me a little trick, and they said, it's real simple. If you want to be able to make a good print, here's what you got to be able to do. If your pictures are always coming out dark, open up Photoshop on your computer screen, make a nice big file, or just make a white JPEG of any size and set it as the background on your desktop. Stretch it so your desktop is pure white. And then take a piece of white paper, like white printing paper, and hold that white printing paper next to your screen. And then what you have to do is you have to put enough light in the room so that the white printing paper is as bright as the white on your screen. Because the problem we have is we all like, well, I shouldn't say all, but most of us photographers, we like to do our retouching in the dark or in dimly lit rooms. We feel that it's easier on our eyes, even though it's actually not, but we all think that way. So the images that we're working on are backlit, which means they always appear brighter than they are. It's kind of like, you know, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, that kind of thing. Well, it's the same thing, you know, objects on your computer screen are actually darker than they appear. So if you want to be able to get the proper balance for brightness on printing, you just got to make sure that the room is bright enough to compensate for the backlighting of the monitor. Newer calibration tools like the iStudio from X-Rite, they have tools that will allow you to adjust for that all the way through to the printer. But yeah, back then you couldn't do that. And if you don't have it, that's fine. And believe me, the first time you try it, gang, if you've never done it, you're going to feel like you have your room lit to daylight brightness to get that paper white. And you're going to be shocked. The first time you make that white on your screen, you put a piece of paper, that paper's going to look dark gray. You're going to be like, holy crap, what a big difference. It's going to take a lot of light to get to that white. So basically what, you know, I encourage you to do, if you've got a workflow where your stuff's looking good online, et cetera, you keep doing that. And if you're not going to go out and get a proper calibrator, which they're expensive, that's fine. If you don't print enough, that's fine too. So what you do then is when you're ready to print, you open up your file in Photoshop, you do the white paper thing, brighten up the room, and then you add like either a curves layer or a levels layer, and you brighten the image, and then print it. And you'll find that you have much, much better success. Okay? All right, hope that helps, David. Let's see here. The Lofty N Scaler. Do you ever use software like the AI Gigapixel to enlarge an image for print? Don't know if you're familiar with the software, but it can res up an image to 600%. So why would you want a high megapixel camera? Well, I mean, there is that too, Lofty N Scaler. I don't use that software, but I can tell you if you follow me, which hopefully you do, right now I've got an image that's on a billboard, Micro Four Thirds image on a billboard, 48 feet wide by 14 feet tall. If you go to my website, you'll be able to find an article with pictures of the billboard, also close-ups, et cetera. In fact, here, let me see if I can bring that up. Where it's tack sharp, okay? It's absolutely tack sharp. Yeah, it's this article right here. I'll go ahead and share that. And there's some close-ups in the article. Sorry, they're in the video. Close-ups that show you just how sharp it is, all that kind of stuff. So I'll put that information in here. So I'm familiar with the software. I don't really have much of a need for it, but yeah, I mean, you certainly can use it. Okay. Let's see here. And by the way, so the short version is, could you use that to upres your images? Sure, absolutely. From everything I've read about the AI gigapixel, it works like amazingly well. So let's see here. Scrolling down. Zvonimir Tasek, I'm your favorite YouTube channel. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that, sincerely. Let's see. Annie Bobany. I love the Sigma 56 1.4. Have you tried it? No, not at all. But yeah, if you love it, it's awesome. Yeah, totally. So let's see here. Zavinomar, and I apologize if I'm saying that improperly because I probably am. I'm really sorry. What about using drones for outdoor flash photography? Mount a wireless flash on a drone and fly it around the scene to film the light from above. Have you or people, try this? I haven't. There are people that have done it. You see stuff on the photography blogs. Obviously, the problem with doing that, number one, is drones aren't really designed for that. At least not consumer grade drones. Number two, at least here in the U.S., the laws are becoming very strict on using drones and that kind of stuff. So it's certainly an option, but you're gonna need help with people and somebody to fly the drone, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean it's doable, but it's gonna take some work. Okay. Let's see here. Kevin Mandera, 3200 just didn't seem sharp. Came from full frame, so I'm used to different noise. So there's a couple things, Kevin, and honestly, look, I don't want you to think like I'm bullying you because I'm an Olympus or Micro Four Thirds guy, but I will tell you my outlook on this, right? So number one, since you're using the word sharp, that says to me that potentially your image is not as sharp as it should be, and maybe you have not made the proper adjustments to the focusing system in your Olympus camera. The focusing systems are incredibly advanced, right? So there's a lot of fine tuning that you can do to that autofocus system to make sure that it is going to give you what you need. So that's the first place to start. Second place then, are you going to have a different noise level at 3200K with a Micro Four Thirds camera than you do with a full frame camera? Well, yeah, of course you are. And this is where it becomes a personal choice issue, right? Somewhere in the early 2000s, 2005, 2010, I would love to be able to document it, but it's an evolution that occurred. In the photography industry, we kind of crossed a line where the common thought process, the standard thought process, was that it is bad to have any kind of texture whatsoever. And I'm using the word texture intentionally. You'll understand why in a minute. But we reached this point where it suddenly was bad to have any texture in an image. But for decades prior, we had grain, and nobody complained. People complained about bad grain. But then digital technology came along in the early 2000s, and we had, instead of grain, we had noise. And the noise, it was horrible. It was worse than Tri-X at 1600 with golf ball size grain. It was horrible. By the mid to late 2000s, most of that had been resolved. And even now, especially, your Olympus camera, Kevin, the noise you're getting, it looks more like film grain. It's more like film texture, much more like it, okay? I don't object to that, especially not at 3200K, the little bit of texture, and it is a little bit, but I don't have a problem with it at all. So it's definitely kind of a personal choice there. But what you might want to do, Kevin, is you might want to go ahead and on Facebook, join a couple of the Facebook photography groups for Olympus. In fact, there's one I'm going to give you a link to here. This is hands down the best learning group for Olympus shooters. It's the OMD education group. Join that group. It's not a picture sharing group. It's an information sharing group. But if you're asking the question about your images, you'll be able to share one or two images and basically share what settings you're using in terms of your autofocus system, and then also talk about where your concerns are. you will find lots of people that will be extremely helpful. Perluigi, thank you so much for the super chat. You will find lots of people that will be extremely helpful in terms of making sure that you have your settings optimized. You know, that's kind of one of the pros that for a newbie to Olympus can be a con. The capabilities of the autofocus systems in those cameras is insane in terms of how much it can be customized and adjusted. The con is when you're new to the system, it's got a little bit of a learning curve, right? So that's a good problem, but nonetheless, it's something you have to go through. So yeah, make sure that you've, you know, that you've covered all those bases before you kind of write it off and find yourself frustrated. But at the end of the day, it is definitely going to be somewhat of a personal choice, right? And no camera system can account for that. So Mr. Binary followed up on my printing thing with the white paper, or you could turn down the brightness on the monitor to match the paper. Yeah, in theory, that would work, okay? So, all right, scrolling down here. Oh, there it comes. Look, I got all the way. So it's on the screen, so there it is, but I'm 1 minute past. So show's over. What are my thoughts about Jason Lanier and the allegations of abusing models? My thoughts are that I hope we get to the bottom of it, right? There's clearly some problems. And let's be clear, he acknowledged some mistakes in the way he did things, right? These young women deserve to be heard and listened to and taken seriously. The situation needs to be investigated. That's as far as I'm getting into it, guys. Here's what I'm concerned with, and I have talked about this before in 2 previous talk chats. I want to see us, and I'm working behind the scenes on a project. I want to see us as an industry do a better job at educating models and photographers about the proper expectations and the proper behaviors, and to educate about the industry, because even another YouTube channel weighed in on this situation with a podcast the other day. And while they were trying to be very helpful, and a lot of the information that they recommended was very, very good, but they left out an extremely, extremely important piece of that education. And that is that all of this drama that's happening right now, and I'm not using that as a put down word, I'm just saying there's a lot of drama happening around this, right? It's dealing with amateurs all the way around. It's not dealing with what happens in the professional modeling world with agency models. And don't get me wrong, there are problems there too, gang. There are problems there too, but they're very different. A big part of the problem we have is that so many of these young women that have come forward with these issues, they've never been signed by a modeling agency. In fact, many of them would never be signed by a modeling agency. They are freelancing. They are trying to do something that is a creative outlet for them, and they're trying to make money at it, and they deserve to be respected. They have to be respected as humans, as women. But if we're going to solve these problems, we need education on both sides. So it can't be about models, understand that there are predator photographers, and it can't be about photographers understand that there are people that will make accusations. That's not the solution. That's like the way our government works right now, and that's not cutting it. It's not working, is it? Right? So what we need to do is we need to educate both sides about how things should work, and help to get people to understand these are the standards that you should be working at. Look, I agree with the idea that we should be respecting people, period, and then there's no need for any of this, right? But it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. So that's my take. That was a long answer that I wanted to give, but it's important. That's as far in as I'm diving into it, in terms of that drama. It's clearly a legal situation. It needs to be dealt with not on YouTube, not on the internet. It needs to be dealt with, through the proper channels. All I can do is wish the best to these young women, and certainly if there's any way I can personally help them, I will gladly do that, but that's no different than I would do for anybody that contacted me and said I need help. Right? I would try to do my best to help them. So that's the way I was taught. All right, gang, listen, we are way over time. So where am I at? 7:35, so that means an hour and 35 minutes. So you guys owe me like double that number. You owe me a bunch. My head's like fried. I'm done. So just please go take pictures this week, right? Use the cameras, experiment, practice. And I want to talk a lot more about this idea. Go screw stuff up. Literally. Go screw stuff up. Take an idea. If you want to be creative like me, take an idea that seems stupid and try it. But then work at it. Don't walk away. Work at it to figure out how you can make it work. Solve that problem. And you'll be amazed what you'll teach yourself in the process. You don't need YouTube for that. You don't need the internet for that. You don't need Google for that. You just need to really have a passion for creating. So anyway, gang, as always, please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.